One. Welcome to Disability Empowerment Now, Season 4. I'm your host, Keith Murphy Dickinsini. Today I'm talking to Jennifer Purcell, who runs the Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge podcast. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you for welcoming me, Keith, and for having me on your podcast.
So, we've been exchanging several emails over the past few months. Tell me, how did you find the podcast?
So I found your podcast. I think I found it through maybe FeedSpot or one of your emails for the new episodes, and I was intrigued by it by the title Disability Empowerment, and I listened to one of your episodes and was wanting to see if we could collaborate on our podcast together.
And so tell me about your podcast and how it came to be.
Yeah, so I started my podcast, Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge, about 4 years ago. And it started out, I would say it started out when I was diagnosed with an LD, which is nonverbal learning disability, um, in college. And for those of you who haven't learned about NLD before, uh, I can give a brief definition now and I can go into it more later. But it's basically a learning difference where it's hard to interpret nonverbal cues, so like body language and facial expressions. Um, and there are some other challenges with other areas like math and visual spatial. Um, and sometimes the challenges are more severe than others. So it's kind of like autism where there's a spectrum for it. Um, and so I was diagnosed with that in college. And after I went through college, I realized that my learning difference wasn't really one that was talked about a lot because it's one of those that are more rare. And I wanted to raise more awareness about it. And I had an idea for creating a podcast because I was listening to um, another person's podcast on how they empower women um, and men who have been abused in some way. And I was inspired by her podcast to create my own. So that's kind of how it came about.
What's the format like, and why did you choose that format and interview style?
Okay, yeah. So format for me is usually I do some solo episodes where it's just me and I do some topics with those. I usually choose the topic um, based on challenges that I've had in my life or that I've heard other people have had with an invisible learning disability or challenge. And for me, usually I start on that and then I build from it with basically doing some research on that topic and seeing like if there are articles that pop up for it. And I read a little bit of the article in the episode and kind of discuss how I think about it and how I can relate to it in some way. And then the other format is I'll alternate the solo episodes with interviews I do. So I do interviews like you do with other individuals who have a learning disability, or they might have a child who has one, or they are a therapist and they have clients that have learning differences. Um, so they they have some connection to the neurodivergent world, and um, it doesn't have to be my learning difference. I've interviewed a lot of people who have different learning challenges, and I use the word challenge instead of disability because for me it's like, well, I'm not disabled, I'm just different. So I try to, be empowering in that way, I guess, because um, I feel like it's better to say that than disabled. Um, and I think I kind of evolved the format as I went with it because I was really learning how to do a podcast on my own. Um, and I really didn't have experience with it. Um, but I got better at it after my brother, he gave me as a gift one year for Christmas a podcast course by Udemy. I think I'm saying that correctly. Um, and that kind of helped me make it better because they gave you advice on how to, like how long your episode should be and the topics and the structure of it. So that helped me make it better.
So tell me about the logo and how the creation of that, if it influenced the podcast in any way at the beginning or going forward or both.
Sure. So with my logo, I actually had two different logos. The first one I had was um, it was kind of like a butterfly cage artwork that my grandma got me as a gift, and I always have liked butterflies because for me, they're kind of a symbol of how my life has changed over time. Um, and for me, when I realized that the logo I had at first um, it wasn't really unique or a good one to have like on products that I could sell. So I found a graphic designer for logos, and I contacted him and I said, "Hey, would you want to create one for my podcast?" And he has ADHD. His name is Matt. Not remembering his last name right now, but he created my logo, and he's really good at drawing them and adding color to it. And basically, you kind of just tell him what you would like, and he creates different drawings for you to look at. And I liked the butterfly because of the meaning behind it for me. And then in the middle of it is an affinity symbol that I found was also a symbol for neurodivergent. And, and so I kind of snuck that in there, which I thought was cool. And uh, just gave it some bright colors that I find appealing. Um, and uh, the shape of it was basically one that I, again, would thought would look better on t-shirts or stuff like that if I wanted to eventually go that way with products for the podcast. Oh, I didn't hear what you're saying.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay.
How has the podcast, which has been going on for 4 years, influenced or has it influenced how you relate to your own invisible learning challenge? And again, how has it done that?
Yeah, so I would say it has influenced my learning challenge with the podcast because um over the years of doing it with the solos episodes and the interviews I've had, I've gained definitely more perspective of what it's like to have a learning challenge across all the people I've interviewed, from people who have just one learning disability or difference like ADHD or autism, or if they have more than one, sometimes, or dyslexia, um, or physical ones like a stutter or speech impediment. Sometimes that comes up too. And for me, hearing about, um, other neurodivergence lives, that has been helpful to see how um, how I relate to different aspects from their lives and how I might not as well. Um, and also just the different challenges that we have and we experience, and seeing, okay, I was diagnosed with NLD, but sometimes I can relate to another challenge from um, dyslexia or autism or ADHD. I'm like, well, maybe that's just because they're similar in some way, or maybe I have a little bit of that as well. Sometimes it's hard to tell. um, but yeah, I would say the interviews have definitely helped me think about future topics that I've done on my podcast that I necessarily didn't think about doing before, or I try to go deeper into previous topics as well.
So your podcast operates in two different episode modes, solo and interview. How did you decide on that? Because this podcast leads right now and has always operated as a interview podcast only. So I'm interested in a fellow podcaster being open to choosing to do either or, and then how do you select your guests, and how do you format a season?
Yeah, so usually the format for the solos, like I was saying before, um, I find a topic and do article research for that and give my thoughts about the article. Um, and then that differs from the interviews because, so usually with the interviews, I will find guests by I try to reach out to them, like maybe there's an author of a article that I want to discuss more about with them and see if I can interview them. Um, Sometimes it's a little tricky to try to figure out how to contact somebody if it's not real explicit. But sometimes they'll have like a message that you can uh, format that you can do through their article. Like if it's a blog, they'll have a messaging tool on there, or um, they'll have a contact form you can fill out and get in touch with them that way. Um, and then other times they actually reach out to me I would assume that they found my podcast and listened to it. And I always kind of end the episodes with an invitation of people contacting me if they want to be interviewed or if they know somebody who wants to be interviewed. Um, and that helps um, put that into fruition. And then when they email me, I basically ask them how they found the podcast, like you do, and what they want to talk about. Um, I usually give them uh, some uh, questions I've used before in the past with other interviews. And I usually ask them if they haven't already volunteered what learning disability they have. Ooh. Um, and then I will let them know what format I use for the interview. And also, like, other than asking them personal questions about their life and how it is with their learning challenge, I'll try to weave in some questions about like how they deal with it in their job or in school, and in their adult life, and then how it's progressed over time for them as well, and if they have any like accomplishments that they're really proud of that they've been able to achieve even with a learning difference. And it's been really cool. I appreciate more when people find me actually than me finding them, because it's it's interesting for me, maybe this is true for you too, to see how they find it and what they like about the podcast and get some good feedback on it.
Yeah, that's very interesting to me as well. Unlike you, I don't really ask that pre-interview. I mean, I could, I just like bringing it up during the interview so I can absorb it, how my viewers and listeners uh, do. I noticed a shift in the product that I was putting out with my team was actually reaching an audience when people, yourself included, kept contacting me for interviews. I didn't expect that to happen as quickly as it did. It's very humbling, actually, that when I read email from a fellow podcast host, a literary agent, a entertainment agent, all the actual guests themselves. Uh, and so that's that makes me feel really good that I'm not just putting this product project, pageant project out into the open, uh, into a void, where I'm not sure if people are actually listening, watching it, or if they are. So that's that's very gratifying, particularly that people want to come on the podcast and now video casts and share their story and share what they're doing, what they think, what they feel about the world around them in which they live. That's I feel very honored to be able to help them reach a broader audience. I just started doing video as well as audio. Uh, Actually, early last season, and then nearly everyone after that wanted to do video as well as audio, and this is the first official season where it's officially a video cast. Have you ever thought about being a video cast, or do you just like the podcast format?
Yeah, so that's a good question about audio and video. For me, I think I prefer just the audio because, well, it's a personal preference. I definitely learn better with audio format. Like I know when I'm reading a book, for example, I prefer an audiobook rather than reading a visual book because I found out actually by doing my podcast where when I do the solos, I have like a little script that I typed out so I can help the flow of the episode. And I found out that early on, if I didn't underline the script, like the words, I accidentally jumped around a little bit sometimes. And so um, that for me is kind of like a little bit dyslexia there, I guess. And so um, when I underlined it, I found out that I didn't jump around as much. And so that made the audio easier. Um, I definitely have thought of doing some video with it. But I would have to kind of test and see how my video skills are. Because I haven't really done much of that. But I probably could do a basic videos like with Zoom and create a pretty good product that way. I might kind of start uh, experimenting with that maybe because I've done the audio format for so long. It might be good to, occasionally do video as well.
Yeah, I normally don't offer advice on this podcast and video cats, but as a fellow podcaster, I would strongly encourage you to consider it because once I started doing video, the interviews became so much more dynamic. I mean, they already were dynamic, but the added dynamic of seeing each other, being able to read and bounce off each other's body language was very thrilling, and it made the interviews I would like to think so much more interesting and engaging from a listener's and a viewer's standpoint. And so I would encourage you to explore that aspect when and if you are ready to do that. Uh, and so since season 2 of this podcast, I've created narrative arcs throughout every season. And that's really helped me structure the seasons and the gets and the gets placement. As a fellow podcaster, and you may have touched on this already at the top, but I would be interested in learning more about how you structure your seasons, or if there's a more loose structure, given that you do solo and interview episodes, or or if the structure is important there. And do you start each season with a set goal number of episodes you would like to get to? I'm just curious more about your process on crafting the seasons.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think for me with my seasons, in the beginning, it was I would say it was more structured than it is now, because I would say so I kind of started with going through the main areas of challenges that I have with NLD, like I was saying earlier, like with the doing math is hard for me, like mental math is tricky, so I usually do better if I write it down on paper. Um, and My processing speed is also slower. So, like, if I'm doing something where there's multitasking, like driving is challenging for me. Um, and that's where visual spatial comes into play also for me, where um, I have challenge basically estimating distance between myself and another object, basically, and feeling how close I am to it or far away with that object. And actually, that's definitely visible in driving and other aspects like of my life. And so when I had gone through most of those challenges and like how I evolved through them throughout my life for those episodes, then I kind of started branching out and trying to explore the interview side because I started out pretty much just solo episodes. And then I got the idea with doing interviews because trying to remember, I think somebody might have contacted me about being interviewed, or I found somebody and wanted to interview them. And I the first few were, kind of hard to do because I wasn't sure how long they should be or what the structure should be for them. Um, but that gave me um, a better idea for the future ones. Okay, I kind of do have to structure a little bit with some questions and the time of it because if it was too long, I felt like my audience lost some of the enjoyment in the topic or in the interview. So um, for me, sometimes they go longer than an hour. And if they do, I kind of edit it and into hour sections or half hour sections and release them over time. Um, so that they can still enjoy them in the time span that's good for them. And With the structure, I would, yeah. So like I was saying, it was definitely more structured in the beginning with the topic episodes and the um, solos and interviews. Um, But recently, I've become a little bit more kind of loose with it because I realized that I've done so many topics, I'm kind of running out of ideas sometimes. So I have like a list of topics that I've done over the years. And what I'll do is I can go on my podcast and see, okay, how many people have listened to a certain topic. And that kind of helps me know, okay, this is really popular or it's not so popular. Um, and that helps me know, okay, maybe I need to go deeper into that topic in a different way um, than I did before. So that will help me with future topics as well. And like I said earlier, sometimes when I'm interviewing somebody, they bring up their own ideas of what topics that they might like for me to go into as well. And that helps too. Um, and with the number of episodes, I used to do one weekly, but then I kind of found that sometimes not bi-weekly, but twice a month was a little bit better for me sometimes, depending on how busy I got, because I also have a full-time job with the podcast on the side. So I guess trying to balance the two um, is a little challenging sometimes.
So when I first started this podcast, the first season was 10 episodes, very much a hobby, had no idea if it would continue or not. In fact, probably in the back of my head, I was like 10 episodes, 10 hours, one and done, move on to the next project. But it's when I started creating multiple narrative arcs for season two, which was twice the length of season one. Then it got to be really fascinating and very invigorating. Uh, to do it. And we started every other week as well. And then we got to the point where every week made sense for us. This is my full time job. I'm very blessed that way. But I understand for a lot of people, it's a side project, side gig, side hustle. And so, if I may ask, what is your full time job and how do you find that your invisible learning challenge interacts uh, or affects your work?
Yeah, so my full-time job currently is working for my parents actually, and mother is a minister of a spiritual community, and
Very cool.
yes, so she's been doing that for 40 years for life.
Wow.
Yeah. And she was um she was ordained when she was 23, and so that was pretty young for her. Uh
Yeah, that's
yeah.
pretty young for anyone, I would imagine, but go on.
Yeah, so she a little bit about her ministry. Basically it does have a Christian base to it. Um but the name of it is Unity, and it's more spiritual than religious. One of the easiest ways for me to describe it is that basically we have a belief that there's one God called by many names, and many pass to that one God, with all the different religions that exist. Um, And what I find really unique about it is when you attend the services on Sundays, you can practice your own religion if you still want to or not. That's your choice. And basically, she gives a more metaphysical or spiritual outlook on um, a book. Like she'll do a series on a book usually, um, and how it relates to her spiritual life. Or she'll do one on things like cooking or gardening and stuff like that, which is kind of cool. Um, and then her husband, my dad, is the facility manager of the church or spiritual community, and of our retreat center that we have out in Descanso. Um, and my job, it really came about more during COVID. I was always helping them um, like part time because I grew up in the community um, for my whole life. And so the part time basically started out as helping in the Sunday school with the kids because I like uh, taking care of kids and playing with them and seeing how they interact with adults. Um, and then when I started working after college, I was working with before I was working with my parents, I was working with different agencies who work with children who have learning disabilities like autism. And I did some ABA therapy or life coaching for them. Um, and that was more part-time. I really liked it because I was working with other neurodivergents, but it didn't really work well because I was creating my own schedule with my clients and people could kind of cancel easily. Uh, so that was more part-time and not very consistent. Um, but when COVID came about for my parents for their business and nonprofit, it really shifted how they did their work because of church being mostly in person. They found that aspect kind of challenging with going online and more virtual. So uh, as they started to lose some staff, whether they were quitting because of COVID challenges or personal challenges that came about as COVID. Um, I came on more full time slowly and basically taught myself how to be an admin assistant as part of what I do. And my mom trained me for that as well. And I do a lot of the tech stuff also. So I help my mom manage our website and the app that we have, and the social media posts that we do, and the design behind that. Um, and then I also help with some of the events that we put on, like the classes. If there's a tech aspect to it, like with a PowerPoint or video, I will help my mom with that piece. And we've also hosted memorials or weddings for people, either at the church or at the ranch retreat center. And so I can help with the memorials too because I know how to do some audio and visual work with keynotes or PowerPoints. And that's for me fun because as a millennial, I like working with tech. Um, and I've taught myself how to do a lot of things with tech from the podcast um, to actually another side hustle I have is sometimes I'll help people with their own tech projects of learning how to use their iPhone better or um, other devices, or if they like want to create a PowerPoint that they want to show at an event, or they have an online class, I've helped them with that. Um, and for me, um, I would say how the learning challenge affects my working. Um, Definitely in the beginning, it affected it more because I was working with people that didn't know I had a learning challenge. Because I wasn't very comfortable with revealing that usually. Um, and I think I was still discovering how it affected my work world versus school because that was different. And I was like, well, I had a lot of accommodations growing up with school, so I was used to having a lot of help and support with that. And then when I was in my adult life, not as much support, or it's different than academically speaking. And so um, I was realizing that when I was working with neurodivergence, it was more challenging for me because um, I think it was just really how the work was structured. Like some of the tasks they want me to do, I couldn't really do well, like graphing, um, because of the visual spatial or mathematical piece of it. And so I found out when I was working with my parents, whether that was with Sunday school or when I became more full time, it was a lot easier and more flexible for me because they know uh, how I work with my learning difference from being my parents, and also being my teachers for school. Actually, I was homeschooled, so they also know that aspect. And I would say that makes working a lot easier because they know how to help me with those challenges, more unique than most employers would.
Yeah, I was homeschooled for a few years. Uh, I'm trying to remember the grades. Um, can't. The motivation of this podcast came in 2019, so pre-pandemic. But like yours, it was very much, and like your full-time job, it was very much born or born again. Uh, just had to slide that in there. Uh, Out of the COVID pandemic, I needed something to do and I wanted to give back in any way I could. And that was very important to me. Now, before I'd started doing the podcast, I had no idea how to interview people. If I didn't have the innate curiosity about understanding others, I wouldn't do that at all. Had someone told me uh, several years ago that this would be the job I would be doing, I would have seriously laughed in their face because that was never in my wheelhouse. Neither was acting part time. I always loved going to theater, never had uh, any gumption uh, to really be like, hey, I could get up on stage or I could act virtually. So it's interesting how things work out sometimes professionally, but general in life, and how talents or capabilities that you necessarily wouldn't view as being in your toolbox or warehouse, whatever metaphor you want to use there, were actually there all along. You just had little to no idea that they were there. And so, do you like the workload that your full-time job gives you, and juxtaposing it with the side hustles you do? One of them is the podcast. And do they intersect in any way? And if so, how?
Yeah, so for me, I do enjoy working with my parents. Like I was saying a little bit earlier, I find it easier than working the previous jobs I had because of them knowing more about me personally and how I work, and my behaviors and challenges. And for me, I actually have a lot of fun with my job. I really like the tech part of it and teaching. I've taught myself most of that by going online and watching tutorials for what I work with the website and the app, the different formats or programs. Um, and I also, the other side hustle with the uh, tutoring with tech, as kind of the name I gave to it, um, that came about actually kind of last year when people were when I was giving some tech classes on what we use at work, the app and the website, because some of our members had questions about how to use those tools better when they were looking up on them to reg- register for an event or go back and listen to a lesson that my mom did. Um, And so when I was teaching them that, they realized uh, that I was really patient with them and really good at teaching them. And then they asked if I ever thought about doing that for other people, for their businesses or for personal things. And I was like, well, maybe. What did you have in mind? Like, I asked them basically what they wanted help with, and I was like, yeah, if it's something I already know how to do, like editing their website or creating a website for them, or like I said, helping them host an online class, or create like a audio project for them, help them create that. Then yeah, I can do it. And some of them I actually haven't done much with my work job, but I do some with my podcast as well. So they do kind of intersect a little bit where I've helped another neurodivergent create her own podcast because she has an LD and ADHD. Her name's Linda Grozelis. And she also is a tutor and has some books. And she wanted help with creating a website and podcast for her self. And so I helped her with that and kind of try to teach her how to use the formats that I use. I think she's changed the format for the website, but I kind of gave her a start with that. And um, I would say the other areas that the podcast intersects with the job would be like when I was homeschooled, uh, before college, I had a lot of tutors that would help me with my subjects, and in different areas, I had challenges with the math and the science and the writing, um, and a little bit of history as well. Um, and so for me, some of those aspects have actually inspired some of the topics I do on my podcast, which is kind of cool. Um, and Also, the challenges that I had in college were an inspiration. And challenges that I've had in the working world too have been inspirations for topics as well.
So we've talked about a lot of topics in this episode. Uh, if there are any aspiring podcasters, videocasters, self advocates who really want to get more involved, what would be some advice you would give them going forward?
Um, I think for me, the advice would be, excuse me, I think it would depend on how they want to get more involved. Like for yourself, if they want to do more solo episodes rather than, mixed with the interview episodes, like that as an example. I would say, try to explore maybe some of the topics your interviewees have brought up as a start and see, like if it's acting or entertainment. I know you mentioned some of those. Um, like maybe how that intersects with being neurodiverse could be something to look at, or maybe how um, neurodiverse uh, or neurodivergent interacts with the different jobs out there too could be interesting. Um, and Actually, for me, also, I found inspiration by looking at other podcasters and how they structure their podcast, and the topics that they have is interesting as well. Or um, I've looked at blogs too, and use that as inspiration. So I guess basically what I'm trying to say is to kind of play with what you're interested in and see what you can create, because I think um, if you're open to it being a little bit of free flow, that helps the structure and what it can form into. I think sometimes because you never know what you can create. Like for me, um, I don't think I knew how much of an audience I was going to have in the beginning either. Um, like you mentioned, like I thought, is this just going to be, a thing where it doesn't pan out much for people to listen to or have an impact on? But I think I noticed that it did have an impact, just seeing it grow over time by uh, who went on the website that I created, or who listened to the episodes. And that definitely helped me evolve it over time.
So I'd like to think that both advocates with disabilities and those who have yet to discover or embrace their own disabilities both listen and watch this program. I'm not naive to think that both groups take away the same things from every episode. So, as my guest, what do you hope that advocates with disabilities take away from this episode? And what do you hope that those who have yet to discover and embrace their disabilities take away from this episode?
Yeah, so for the advocates, I would want them to take away that there are different different areas in life that neurodivergent people can be involved in, where it's having their own podcast, or having their own business, or helping somebody with somebody that they know with their business, and seeing how excuse me, how the neurodivergent world compares to the neurotypical world, I think is also interesting for me. And I hope that the advocates are able to see, even though we may think differently than neurotypicals, there are some similarities for us. And I think, like you were saying, the advocates, whether they're neurotypicals or neurodivergent as well, can take away some things as well from this episode, with hopefully helping the neurodivergents that they know. I would say just have an easier life with, saying, oh, I didn't realize that they had that challenge before listening to this podcast, um, and talking to them about it. And with the neurodivergence, hopefully they are inspired to, I would say, really uh, go after the challenges you have, because if you do that, then you can try to make them not as prevalent, hopefully, in your life. Sometimes that depends on the learning difference, and some of them you just have to live with and see how they impact your life over time.
Jennifer, if anyone wants to get in contact with you or find out more about your podcast, how can they do that?
Yes. So, I would say the best way to find out more about my podcast is to go on the website I created, which is livingwithnld.com. And on there, I have previous episodes, and I have some testimonials from people I've interviewed. Um, and I'm slowly creating transcripts to the episodes as well, so that people can read along when they listen. Um, and I also have a way to contact me on there. They can fill out a form for a newsletter, or they can email me. I think I have my email on there for the podcast too.
Well, Jennifer, I've enjoyed immensely talking to you and getting to know you and your podcast. I hope that we can collaborate in the near future. It's been a pleasure interviewing you, and I hope you will stay in touch.
Yes, thank you, Keith, for interviewing me and having me on your podcast. I really enjoyed it as well.
Thank you. Take care and have a great weekend.
You too.